I think it is all in service of City of London and, which again is Rothschild, which also controls Israel. So it is in service to that international financial elite. And they want Israel to be the political capital of the world. They want to have their Messiah to rule over, the rest of it, of the, the fallen nations. You're looking really at Epstein being the glue that is connecting all these different players. And he was, in fact, from start to finish, from root to branch, an agent of the Rothschilds.
Hey guys, welcome back. That was researcher and author Susan Bradford. And I wanted to get Susan back on the show as we stand at the cusp of World War III. Say what you want about this current administration. Trust the plan if you want to. The fact of the matter is we are on the cusp of World War III with nearly half of the U.S. naval fleet in the Persian Gulf, with the Russians and the Chinese preparing for the worst. Ladies and gentlemen, I didn't vote for this. Did you? Meanwhile, we have a Justice Department, an injustice department that doesn't give two damns about solving Charlie Kirk's assassination or the Epstein files. It feels like civilization teeters on the very brink because of these people who should be locked up. Friends, before we start this one, just a quick word about a valued sponsor. On January 5th, 2026, the U.S. Department of Energy announced $2.7 billion in contracts to restore domestic uranium enrichment capabilities. The U.S. consumes over 50 million pounds of uranium every year, but produces less than 1 million pounds domestically. That means we're dependent on foreign suppliers for 98%, a critical vulnerability for national security, power generation, and advanced defense systems. This is where Atomic Minerals comes in. Trading on the TSX Venture under ATOM and on the OTC under ATMMF, this company isn't new to the game. It's a team with a history of delivering major uranium exits. Leadership includes members who were part of the discovery and subsequent $654 million sale of the Rough Rider deposit to Rio Tinto. Can they do it again? Atomic controls 4 100% owned uranium projects strategically located in the Colorado Plateau, America's historic uranium province, which has produced over 597 million pounds of uranium. Trading at an 87% discount to the peer group average, the company presents potential upside as the market begins to recognize its strategic assets and proven management team. Now, do your own due diligence. This is not investment advice, but with a government mandate, an experienced management team, and strategic uranium assets in a Tier 1 jurisdiction, Atomic Minerals is a company to be watched closely. If you want to learn more about this critical minerals story and the team that already delivered big results, check out the link in the description. A special thanks to Atomic Minerals for making today's interview possible. Hey friends, welcome back. Thanks so much for being here. Sean from SGT Report. Guys, I hope everyone was able to dig into Pizzagate Debunked. That was my micro-documentary from 10 years ago, which is every bit as evergreen today as it was then, because they've disproved and debunked nothing, nada, zero, zilch regarding what we call Pizzagate and what is more widely known now as the Epstein child abuse, child rape emails. Folks, what you're looking at on my screen right now is Susan Bradford's site, the prolific author of The BlackRock Bamboozle, The Saudi Swindle, and more. And taking a look at Susan's Substack, the IRS, the enemy of the people, has classified silver and gold as collectibles, taxing capital gains. We've got a lot to talk about today, not the least of which is that the Epstein documents are an international problem. Susan, welcome back. How are you?
Hi, Sean. I'm doing very well. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Hey, always a pleasure. Just on silver, I note today that it's up $4.32, up 5%, back over 80 to 83 and change. And next week, China comes back from a 1-week vacation. I think this thing is going north of 100 in short order. So no wonder the IRS has just reclassified silver in a way that's probably not great for we the people who own it, huh, Susan?
No, I would agree with that. Yeah, it was quite shocking to me because I know a lot of people are stacking silver and gold, but yeah, it should be a commodity or should be used as tender if you want to use your silver, in a transaction to buy a car, house, whatever. You should be able to use it accordingly. But during the Clinton administration, they reclassified silver and gold as a collectible. So what that means is that any realized capital gains can be taxed, and I think it's taxed according about 20 to 30%. And on top of that, if you go to sell silver, you'll likely pay a high commission. So they're making it less of a good investment for those who are trying to preserve their assets.
Well, here's the dirty little secret, folks. The IRS, our tax system is voluntary. We've covered this time and time again. And once you dig into that, you will realize that you are not beholden to these capital gains taxes. We'll focus on that, of course, in the future as well. But where I want to focus today is on the elephant in the room, folks. And Dave Smith was just on Jimmy Dore. I'll play a clip in just 1 second. Here's Dave Smith over on X. Trump's Justice Department illegally covered up the name of at least one co-conspirator to child sex trafficking and got caught red-handed. Blame Bondi, Patel, Bongino, all you want, but the bottom line is the buck stops with Trump. He did this. Now let that simmer, guys. I just want to play this brief exchange between Jimmy Dore and Dave Smith.
So it's even worse than you expected. You think he's had some kind of break. Yeah. So he told, no, when they were trying to kill him, I thought that was a sign that the deep state was still allergic to him and they were still thinking they couldn't control him. But now, as I look back on it, because he closed the investigation in Butler, Pennsylvania, and that guy, and now the Charlie Kirk, it's clear to me that the Trump administration was in on that in some way, or at least they're in on covering it up. What do you say about that?
I want to pause it right there. Susan, what do you say about that? Because, boy, when Jimmy Dore starts to, backtrack even on what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, and he's starting to wonder if maybe that whole thing was part of a psyop, as some people like Jeff Berwick and others have suggested. What do you make of the allegation now that we can't even believe what we saw with our own eyes in Butler, Pennsylvania during that pot shot at the president? I took slings and arrows from a lot of folks who said, are you nuts? That whole thing's a psyop. What do you not recognize about that? And, what I said is, hey, it was Biden's Secret Service in charge. Okay, it was Biden's administration under which this happened. So, I thought Occam's razor, somebody really took a shot at the president and missed. Now, even Jimmy Dore is starting to wonder, was that part of a psyop? I mean, did the president really get shot at in Butler, Pennsylvania, given the fact that he's shut down that investigation, given the fact that the DOJ and Kash Patel don't give two damns about what actually happened to Charlie Kirk on September 10th? People are starting to wonder.
Okay, well, I think you need to look at what were the consequences of this shooting, and was it a psyop? Now, I haven't done a forensics analysis to know whether it was legitimate or not, whether he was indeed shot, but MAGA played it up to make him appear to be a savior. Therefore he survived death, and we should, look up to him as the Messiah. And I think this Messiah complex is something that a lot of the MAGA elites have promoted because they are looking for, the Messiah to be, the King of Israel and to promote this wider Zionist agenda.
Zionist agenda, indeed, and the handlers around Trump. Look, he took $250 million from Miriam Adelson. And that's one of the points that Jimmy Dore and Dave Smith make. I mean, it seems like he's happy to be bought and paid for. He brags about taking that money, and now he's doing the bidding of Israel. So we're going to talk a little bit about this impending war with Iran. I sent this out today. 3 tweets that prove how screwed we are. Number 1, this from U.S. Senator JSilver, quote, Jewish lives matter more than anyone's, end quote. Okie dokie. How about this one? Number 2, look at the evil in his eyes. Lindsey Graham, you piece of filth. Listen to this.
When you look at the last few years since October 7th, many people in this part of the world say what happened in Gaza does not align with Christian values. Killing children, killing mothers,
well, be honest
killing
with
families
you,
who are not militants.
Yeah, I don't buy that at all.
Why?
Because what did we do in World War II? Did we think 1 minute about starving the Germans? Did we bomb every city into smithereens? So this is a war. No,
October 7th to World War II.
Yes, I am. This is an absolute existential threat to the Jewish people. What happened on October the 7th?
What happened on October 7th was a stand down, which is now confirmed by members of the IDF who have blown the whistle and gone public. Okay, folks, give me a break. Bought and paid for. Susan, I'll give you a chance to comment in just 1 second. But again, 3 tweets proving just how screwed we are. Here's tweet number 3. The U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee.
Should Israel be expected to even pay 1 penny to rebuild Gaza at this point?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I'll tell you, if anything, there ought to be reparations to Israel for the extraordinary fight that they have had to conduct to get their hostages back, 252, including many Americans.
All right, let that sink in, folks. Let it sink in. I don't know, it leaves me quite speechless. I think we're a captured nation.
No, we are a captured nation. We have been, for a long time now. And, they're talking about, like death is not a problem. I remember when Madeleine Albright was asked, is the murder of a few children, it was a few hundred, few thousand children, a problem to advance a foreign policy objective? And she said, no, that's the way it is. And so what we're dealing with is an elite that that draws upon we the people to subsidize their markets. They will have us subsidize bombing nations during World War II, for example, bombing Gaza, and then we come back in and then we rebuild those nations, giving public-private partnerships, very lucrative government contracts, and then enabling the elite to establish monopolies within those countries and areas. And I think what this shows is that they have no value for human life whatsoever, whether it was in Gaza, the Palestinians, or during World War II, when many millions were sacrificed, in the interest of empire building.
I'm just jotting down a few things here because I have a tendency to always go back to the House of Rothschild. It was Mother Rothschild who famously said, if my sons didn't want there to be wars, there would not be wars. And we've got the Epstein now connection, the clear connection to the House of Rothschild. In the email specifically, he says, as you may know, I represent the Rothschilds. So we can't talk about Israel without talking about Epstein and the Rothschilds, which leads me to this. Erica Kirk and her connections to child trafficking, to Epstein. All of this is a model that has been in use by the elite for centuries. I would say for millennia, going back maybe to the beginning, Susan. They traffic in children, and something that I thought was, you agree with me?
Yeah, I do, and it's shameful, but yes, I do agree with you.
Yeah, and they sacrifice children. It's all over these emails, but what happened yesterday was very, very telling. I wrote this. Oh, I see. So the talking points and marching orders went out yesterday. That would have been Wednesday. And all of the Zio captured knee benders jumped into action. Insurrection Barbie, Brandon Tatum, John Strand, Nathan Livingstone, Sassafras 84, etc. All the same anti-Candace, pro-Erica talking points. And I would add to that, anti-Tucker talking points. Judas would be proud, folks. Now, meanwhile, even the International Business Times, mainstream media, is reporting on the fact that Erica Kirk is allegedly linked to sex trafficking, and her pastor faces child trafficking charges. Folks, this is why people like Dave Smith and Jimmy Dore are now questioning everything, because this administration doesn't want to get to the bottom of who actually assassinated Charlie Kirk.
It is of such public importance. The flip side of that is the social media people get involved and they come run with their crazy conspiracy theories because it makes them money. It gives them clickbait. And I don't work for them, and I don't respond to them.
Well, God help them all when Candace comes back from her 1-week vacation. She's coming back next week, Susan. That's why I think the talking points went out yesterday. The marching orders went out yesterday for the knee benders to try to crucify Tucker and Candace. It's so predictably corrupt.
But Sean, did you see that that recent Tucker incident in which he was captured at the airport?
Well, I don't even know what happened there because the limited amount of video I've seen, didn't appear to be that. What's your take on it?
Well, that's a very good question. I saw Benny, is it what's his name? The Benny
Benny Johnson?
Benny Johnson. Benny Johnson did a show on the capture, and the one that we saw showed that he was being detained at the airport. And then afterwards, there was a video of Tucker kind of, shaking hands with whoever captured him, and kind of treated the opportunity as a photo op. So he kind of Tucker played it up as though, the Israelis are kind of after him. But I don't know if that was also a psyop or somehow staged. That didn't make any sense either.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense to me, but I can tell you, I understand why Tucker didn't want to step foot into Israel proper. I mean, honestly, they've literally talked about assassinating the man. I mean, in couched language, and he knows what probably happened to Charlie Kirk. It certainly wasn't lone gunman Tyler Robinson. So again, I know all bets are off at this point. Nobody trusts anybody anymore, and that's the sad truth about what they've done to us, because if you don't know who to trust, how in the world do you move forward? And the mega base is being destroyed. I don't know what that means for the midterms, but I don't even know what that means for the future of our nation. Do we have a nation anymore, Susan? Do we have a government? I don't feel like we have an operating government that's even remotely operating under constitutional law for we the people.
No, it definitely isn't operating according to constitutional law. It's operating according to the U.S. Civil Code. So it's corporate law, and I think like the Constitution is definitely in abeyance. So do we have a functioning democracy or a republic at this point? I think we do not. It has been hijacked by a crime syndicate. I think it's being geared to support international corporate and financial interests, where we the people are subsidizing all of this. They're not honoring the Constitution or our rights. So it is becoming very dangerous. And I think that our leaders are only looking towards how they can use our government and our assets to enrich themselves, and it's all being done at our expense.
Yeah, they're looting. It's just so clear that they're looting. And, I'll throw Trump in the mix on that too, because his Trump coin and the Melania coin, each one's down like 95%. It was a complete rug pull. I mean, I can't even think of anything more despicable. They were already rich. Why did they have to victimize their supporters? Okay, look no further than that, guys. Even if everybody wants to give Trump, the mega base wants to continue to give him a pass, and we know X-22, Godspeed, guys. I hope you're right. But why the rug pull on his base with shit coins, essentially? By the way, guys, let me vet it out just a little bit further. Epstein equals Rothschild equals Israel. You cannot talk about Israel without talking about Rothschild and Epstein. Here's Les Wexner in his own words. Listen closely.
Done personal work for the Rothschild family in France.
There you go.
Well, specifically, I talked to Elie de Rothschild, and so I mentioned that earlier. So he represented their whole family. So there had been a whole bunch of people. Most of them I never would have met, but I knew Elie. He would say, like, I'm providing financial advice to the founders of Google. I'm providing financial advice to Jeff Bezos.
Answer the question. 5 words, okay? Answer the question.
Okay.
Okay, so the House of Rothschild. Let's go back to the author of the book, The BlackRock Bamboozle. You know what? When I talk about BlackRock, I also say House of Rothschild, Rockefeller, the Morgans. I mean, all of that multi-generational banking wealth. That's BlackRock, is it not?
No, it is. It's their vehicle for kleptocracy. So it is. And this, I think we have to go back to the Nixon administration where they they planted the seeds for BlackRock and this global takeover.
To that end, let me just circle back briefly to silver in physical form and gold. What do the move in precious metals prices mean to you versus their CBDC dreams and whatever the hell their nightmarish dystopic future plans were for us? Has their hand been weakened considerably?
I think the elites have lost control of the plot. There is a bit of rivalry between China and the United States. But I think we also have to look at the fact that the elites, even though there's a lot of infighting, they created, and by elites, I mean the financial interests around the City of London, they created China, and the entire fiat system is based upon Chinese money systems in which the ruler had always held the metals, and then he dispersed fiat currency. They called it flying currency to the merchants, to the people. So inevitably, the currency would be devalued, inflation would go through the roof, and the emperor would wind up with all the gold. So the plan since World War II, and they laid it out at Yalta, was to elevate communist China to lead the New World Order, and then to reduce the United States to a bankrupt welfare state. So I think there's a systematic destruction and dismantling of the United States, where they're taking our money out, they're moving their base over to China, or they like to. And their new BRICS, which they're promoting as like a multipolar economic system, with Russia, China, India, Saudi Arabia, and so forth, was actually created by the City of London at the very end of the Clinton administration, beginning of the administration of George W. Bush. To find an alternative to the end of the petrodollar. And why does that matter? The petrodollar, which was launched during the Nixon administration, became critical to supporting the development of the world with the US dollar. So the Saudi Arabia was the global development partner of the World Bank. Once they realized that the petrodollar was on borrowed time due to the overproduction of Saudi wells, they had to come up with a plan B. The plan B was BRICS. But unfortunately, the BRICS nations are, fortunately for us, they're in no position to form a central bank. They're all working against each other and at odds with each other. They're not able to form a coherent policy. So I think the US dollar will still dominate international transactions for many years to come. But there is, I guess, a lot of infighting and rivalry between, the Chinese faction and the American faction.
Yeah. You mentioned that the goal is to make us a bankrupt welfare state. I think they've succeeded. I don't think there's any turning that back. And we can talk about tariffs in just 1 minute here. We'll turn to tariffs later in the conversation, but they've succeeded. I don't think there's any putting the horse back in the barn at this point with 39 trillion in debt. Do you?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that the government really has created that debt without any benefit, or with marginal benefit to the American people. So I think a case could be made, or to challenge whether or not we actually owe that debt, or is that debt owed by the beneficiaries, which would be these international bankers and corporations.
Oh, well, now that's interesting. Do you want to expand upon that? Because I'm not one of these Jacera guys. I don't believe that any of that good news is coming down the pike. I don't think there's secret $500 trillion in hidden gold somewhere that's magically going to just forgive all the debts of all the people, and we're going to have a utopia anytime soon. Expand upon that. What is the model by which we save ourselves, do you think?
We save ourselves by, I think we have to restore the power to the sovereign states. They are meant to be independent and sovereign from the federal government. The federal government is to respond to the states, and the states are to represent the interests of the people. So I think we have to go back to that Republican model. Right now, you have like a federal system in which since the Nixon administration has been printing endless amounts of fiat dollars, giving them to the states, making those states dependent upon that money, and then with that money, of course, comes strings, and then they can then dictate how those states conduct themselves, what policies that they need to pursue, and the fiat dollar has given. It says given permission and given leeway, encouraging the states to just become profligate spenders, and then if they ever fall into debt, they can go back to the federal government and ask for more. So I think we definitely have to get off the fiat system, but more importantly, I think we need to reestablish the structure that was set up by the founding fathers, which was a federal republic with truly functioning independent sovereign states. And of course, that goes back to, we have to have a sound money system at the center of that.
Do you see any states specifically that could help us to that end? I mean, Texas started their own gold depository. There are states moving to legalize gold and silver as legal tender, non-taxable. What are the states upon which we could hang our coat at night and think, okay, we stand a chance? Because it's certainly not going to be New York State or Illinois or Minnesota or California. What states are doing the right thing?
That's a very good question. I know there are about 5 states, I can't name them off the top of my head, which are moving to establishing gold and silver as legal tender. And I think, I know that Florida is one of them, and having gold and silver as legal tender should be effective in Florida as of June of this year. So I think they are trying to move in the right direction.
Just hours ago signed a bill making the coins legal tender. This legislation allows but does not require their use for payments, including taxes and fees. Government entities that opt into accepting these coins must do so electronically and partner with licensed financial institutions. The bill also exempts gold and silver coins from sales tax.
Okay, before we talk about tariffs, the official Jeffrey Epstein pedophile arrest counter is at 1. I guess that refers to Prince Andrew, whose brother, King Charles, was best friends with serial pedophile and murderer, also a necrophiliac, Jimmy Savile, who worked for the BBC for more than 30 years. The same BBC that in 2016 claimed to have debunked Pizzagate. We'll bring that up again, guys. Pizzagate debunked? Hardly. In fact, now it's all been proven true. As you said in the pre-call right before I hit record, Susan, the Epstein documents are an international problem, and Donald J. Trump is named in these documents as well. What do you think is the significance of what we're living through as humanity right now, given that these documents are now proving that these people do the darkest deeds imaginable behind closed doors in the dark, and they do these things to children?
Very good question, Sean, and that cuts right to the heart of our problems that we're facing as a nation. There was some of the content in those emails I couldn't even bring myself to read, and they were just so horrific. But what we're looking at here is really the expose of the international deep state, and this is a group in which the international money launderers, the international crime syndicate, international drug traffickers, armed traffickers, children traffickers are being exposed. So it isn't an American problem. It's an international problem. And I wanted to take exception to what Alexander Dugin said. He said that, that Epstein exposes the rot of the West and that it has discredited us. It hasn't discredited us. It's discredited our leadership.
Because of the Epstein lists, the West is collapsing right before our eyes. All the conspiracy theories have not merely been confirmed. They have far surpassed every previous version imaginable. The West has revealed itself as a demonic system of civilization, at the very center of which stands satanic, cannibalistic sects that devour children, traffic women, orchestrate provocations around the world, manipulate financial markets and political processes, and perform blackmail. Who are they even supposed to vote for? And what are we to do now when humanity has adopted so many Western practices in education, when we've come to believe in their culture, when we remake their films, when we still rely on their financial instruments? The situation for the world, for history, for humanity itself is truly extraordinary. We are essentially living in a global state of emergency, an Ernstfall. No one any longer has guaranteed sovereignty. Law, rights, agreements, everything has been voided. And with elites tied to Epstein's island, that should come as no surprise. For them, there are no red lines at all. You see, this pedophilic satanic elite can simply decide that Putin is evil, or that the Iranians are evil, or that Xi Jinping is evil, and then launch a nuclear war that destroys humanity.
But he said that we should now look for leadership to Russia and China. And I wanted to, to confirm that like Russia and China are still part of the same network. And just to give you a sense of this, China is led by Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping was actually tapped by Frank Paulson. You may remember him. He was the Secretary of Treasury during the subprime mortgage crisis, and he authorized the great multi-billion-dollar bailout for the corporations, but that bailout was subsidized by debt, and the debt was provided by China. Frank Paulson had actually he had tapped Xi Jinping when he was a low-level functionary within the Chinese apparatus, and he groomed him for the role that he would play on the world stage. Paulson created the U.S.-China Strategic Economic Dialogue that promotes high-level engagement between the Chinese elite, which would include Xi Jinping, and the elite of the banking and corporate political class within the United States. So they are working hand in hand. And that's just to give you one example.
Sorry for a quick break, guys. The rules of money are being rewritten right in front of our eyes. The institutions that control the financial system aren't waiting. They are acting. They're buying gold and silver at an unprecedented pace. They're preparing for something. The question is, are you? For nearly a decade, Noble Gold Investments has helped thousands of people protect their wealth with physical gold and silver. As the world shifts to hard assets, the window to act is closing. Let Noble Gold show you how simple it is to protect yourself and your family. This is not investment advice. Always do your own due diligence and consult a licensed financial planner with big decisions. But while everyone else is reacting to the news, Noble Gold clients are positioned. They understand that when the rules change, you need assets that don't depend on the system. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com or sgtreportgold.com and download your free wealth protection kit right now. That's noblegoldinvestments.com or sgtreportgold.com. Because the rules are changing, you need to make sure you're ready. The link is below.
So they are working hand in hand. And that's just to give you one example.
These rat lines need to be brought to an end, but I don't think it's going to happen, Susan. The intelligence agencies, these are their rat lines, and they're not going to dismantle their own rat lines when we don't even have a DOJ that's going to prosecute anybody. And I guess just to stay on this through line, guys, I want to just share with you that it's amazing to me how many knee-bending white women, white men, I guess you'd call them Christians, these people that defend Erica Kirk at every turn. Erica Kirk pretends to be a trad wife, a traditional wife, a Christian-loving wife of Charlie Kirk, but her entire background, her entire story has self-destructed. She's lied at every turn about who she really is, about what she's really been involved in the past. And Candace Owens is going to lay her bare next week. Now, this nutcase over on X says, in a world full of Candace Owens, be an Erica Kirk. Below that, this character, this knee bender says, I've stood with Erica Kirk since day one and admire what she's been doing. How can you admire anything she's been doing when all she cares about is the spotlight and the merch sales, folks? Okay, here's the through line. These same people that will not defend themselves and our rights in this nation and the rule of law and don't care about who actually assassinated Charlie Kirk, these same people are going to be targeted by the same apparatus that has already infiltrated TPUSA. That's the Zionist entity. Listen to this, guys.
Well, for the past several months, I've been working on a special project examining the growing influence of Christian nationalism in America. If you're not familiar, Christian nationalism is an ideology rooted in the belief that our country was founded as a Christian nation and that our laws and institutions should reflect Christian values.
Okay. This is my point, Susan. Quote unquote, the belief that our nation was founded on Christian values. Let's play that again. It's unbelievable.
Project examining the growing influence of Christian nationalism in America. If you're not familiar, Christian nationalism is an ideology rooted in the belief that our country was founded as a Christian nation and that our laws and institutions should reflect Christian values. In the lead up to my hour-long documentary this weekend, we're going to bring you a preview of what you'll see, starting off with the assassination of Charlie Kirk last year. Experts say it was a pivotal moment for the movement and an occasion where the tragedy of his loss unified Christian nationalists and the Trump administration as they honored him.
September 21st, 2025.
By the way, guys, just so y'all know, every single person in that building and around that building was geofenced by Israel. Mm-hmm. They know all your texts, all your information. They stole everything from your phone if you were there. And now they're doing hit pieces about Christianity over on CNN. See, this is my point, Susan. All of these knee benders, I would throw Stephen Crowder, Tim Pool, all of those folks into that briar patch as well. The knee benders that defend the official story and TPUSA, while shitting all over Candace and Tucker.
That's true. And I
It
think
just shocks me. It just shocks me that they're willing to sell their souls for 30 pieces of silver. Judas would be proud, Susan.
Yeah, he would be indeed. I think we have to look at, what is Christian nationalism? The way we think of it would be, of course, we are a nation. We should put our country first, and we are Christians. But since the second Bush administration, the Christian churches were reconstituted as government contractors. So they're no longer part of the traditional Christian faith. They are part of Mammon. And since the 1950s, the Protestant, and I'm a Protestant, the Protestant denomination, they were kind of corralled into an ecumenical movement. The ecumenical movement was designed top down from a global structure, the World Council of Churches, which was infiltrated by the Russian Orthodox Church, which was communism. So you now have communism being preached from the left church pew, and then you have this evangelical or Zionist type of Christianity preached from the religious right of a version of Christianity. So I don't think either version is the doctrine that was taught by Jesus Christ. And so that's a problem. And then in terms of nationalism, of course we should put our nation first, but how do you define a nation? And I think the way that the elites define it is it's for the elites of that political structure. So it would be, for example, for Trump and, Howard Lutnick and Sam Altman, for them to become enriched through the United States and to pursue a policy that would make them personally and financially more powerful. So I don't think either one of those aspects is dedicated to serving the people, if defined according to their own terms.
Yeah, but you see the irony, right, in what I'm trying to say, that these knee benders that defend officialdom regarding Charlie's assassination, regarding just about everything, they'll say anything for money, evidently, 30 pieces of silver, maybe less, $7,000 payments from Israel. I'm alleging that many of these people have done that. I don't know it to be true, but their behavior is despicable. They won't stand up for truth and justice. And we're supposed to believe that Israel is our best friend, our greatest ally, and these people are doing Israel's bidding. It's just disgusting, and I'm calling them out for the Judas goats they are. They're Judases, folks. And here's the thing. 100%, 1,000% agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene. The only quote-unquote Americans who want more war with Iran or anybody else are Zio knee-benders and pedo-rapists, most of whom are also Zio knee-benders, I'd like to note. Just in, former Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene with a message to the world regarding war with Iran. Dear world, Americans do not support going to war. Americans want rich, powerful pedos and rapists strung up on gallows. You guys can read this for yourself. She says, I just thought someone should tell you outside our ruling class. I couldn't agree more. I don't want war with Iran. Nobody does, but Bibi wants it. Bibi wants it very badly, Susan. Is he going to get it? Is Trump going to give Bibi his war with Iran?
I don't think that we are, as a nation, in a position to go to war against Iran. I think there's always a political motivation to do it. In fact, there has been one for a number of years, number of decades, because the ultimate Zionist vision was to strike Iran, and then Iran in turn would strike, or Russia in turn would strike us. We'd have a world war. They would bring about Armageddon, and then their Messiah would arise from the ashes. And I think they've always wanted to realize that vision. It's it's very apocalyptic, and I think at the same time we have to realize that Israel uses Iran for money laundering. So there, you have the leadership very much working hand in hand with Israel. So there's a problem there too. But I think right now we're seeing a lot of saber rattling and desperation from the political classes. I don't believe they will have their war against Iran. This is something they have wanted, they do want. I don't think they're going to get it.
Well, he's got 1/3 of the U.S. naval fleet in the Persian Gulf right now. Russia's over there flexing its muscle. So we're about to find out, and this is a very, very dangerous game at the very, very least, with 39 trillion in debt and not a lot of cards left to play. What is Trump trying to do here? Can you see a bright side to what he's doing here at all, or is it all in service to Israel and the demands of Bibi Netanyahu?
I think it is all in service of City of London and, which again is Rothschild, which also controls Israel. So it is in service to that international financial elite. And they want Israel to be the political capital of the world. They want to have their Messiah to rule over, the rest of it, of the, the fallen nations. I don't see a bright side beyond the fact that we, the people, are becoming awake and empowered. And so I think it is up to we, the people, to take our country back. I don't think that we can rely upon the government, certainly not Donald Trump, who is more interested, it appears, in lining his own pocket and in serving Israel and the City of London than he is his own people.
Yeah, lining his own pocket. 250 million from Adelson's wife. You ready for this, guys? Just a few weeks ago, Donald J. Trump sent this out on Truth Social. The actual numbers that we would have to pay back if for any reason the Supreme Court were to rule against the United States of America on tariffs would be many hundreds of billions of dollars, and that doesn't include the amount of payback that countries and companies would require for the investments that they're making on building plants, factories, and equipment for the purpose of being able to avoid paying tariffs. Let me scroll down to the bottom. If the Supreme Court rules against the USA on this national security bonanza, we're screwed. Okay. Guess what? SCOTUS just declared that the tariffs are unconstitutional. You guys ready for the punchline? Howard Lutnick's family firm bought up the rights to tariff refunds for 20 to 30 cents on the dollar after Liberation Day last year. Today, the Supreme Court struck the tariffs down. For every $100 invested, Lutnick's sons just made 3 to 5 times. That is the fleecing of America. The same Howard Lutnick who just by miracle was not at Cantor Fitzgerald on 9/11 when 658 of his employees perished.
That's true. And he's also involved in a firm that works very directly with the Federal Reserve, with securities. It's very disgraceful. I don't know if you caught a program on More Perfect Union. It's a YouTube channel, but they had reported how Trump imposed a number of tariffs on corporations, and those corporations, which gave him very lucrative campaign contributions, de facto bribes, were given favorable treatment for those tariffs. So he was actually using the threat of tariffs as a personal enrichment scheme. So that there's that as well.
And what do you make, just philosophically speaking, what do you make of tariffs? So McKinley rolled them out in the late 1800s. We were said to be the richest the nation ever was. I was hopeful that this might be some magic bullet to save our economy, to save the dollar, to save our way of life. And now SCOTUS has said we can't do it. The president has no authority to impose tariffs on other nations when other nations impose tariffs on us. What do you make of the SCOTUS ruling? Is it just par for the course because SCOTUS is bought and paid for, or do you agree with them?
Well, they said that that Trump did not have any authority under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977 to impose tariffs. From what I recall, that tariffs are really one of the key legitimate ways for the country to raise revenue. But the problem is that we've shipped all of we've shipped our manufacturing base overseas. And the way that the international economy has been set up is that the United States, we the people, have funded the development of the world. We've funded the rise of these international corporations, and they are now taking steps to preserve their ill-gotten gains or their wealth, while we the people have to sacrifice further. So I think that it would, in principle, tariffs might work, but I think the way the system has been set up now, essentially the consumer is going to pay more. And they don't, where most of the American people are not in a position to pay more in groceries and, car repairs and so forth. So I'm not sure, it can function properly now. And, of course, the corporations aren't really in a position to absorb more expenses. And, once they do, they'll have to pass that added expense on to the consumer. The consumers cannot afford to pay it. So I think it's a bad move now, and it has backfired on him. But I think the problem is a lot bigger than what we're looking at.
Well, people are hurting in this country very, very badly. The videos are all over X. People weeping in their cars, weeping in their kitchens, lamenting that they can't afford to live. They're having to pick and choose paying their rent or food, putting gas in their car to get to work. It's really, really bad, folks. And it's because they took the precious metals backing our dollar out of the dollar. And as a result, we're all suffering. As we round out the conversation, I just want to remind people that the Epstein files, the emails, spread it far and wide within your sphere of influence, folks, because these emails implicating the most powerful people in the world, doing the darkest stuff imaginable, they go straight to the top.
So in all of the Epstein files, what is the craziest email that you feel like everybody missed?
The most interesting email is this connection of the House of Rothschild to Jeffrey Epstein. Edmond de Rothschild, at the time, was facing a problem with the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice was alleging that Edmond de Rothschild, the bank in Switzerland, was helping wealthy Americans dodge taxes. So what they decide is that they'll pay a fine. Now, to negotiate that settlement, they hire two individuals, Kathy Rumler and Jeffrey Epstein. He says, I think he will find 45.5 penalty, that's 45.5 million, legal 10 million for legal fees to Kathy, me 25, all less than 80, pretty good. They paid 45.5 million to the Department of Justice. Epstein was paid 25 million to broker that deal. The reason why this puts it all together for me is you have the Rothschilds negotiating with the American Justice Department. Who do you hire? There are 10 law firms which you hire. You don't hire Jeffrey Epstein unless you're hiring him for a reason.
Unless you're hiring him for a reason. Look, I think it needs to be said that the Rothschilds, certainly the Rockefellers, the most powerful people in the world, the most powerful families, knew exactly what Jeffrey Epstein was up to. He had approval at the highest levels to traffic in children, to use children for blackmail, and then I guess for their own sick pleasures. Some of them like to abuse children, rape children, murder children, and eat children. What I want people to realize is that was all known by the most powerful families in the world. Epstein could not have done what Epstein did without the approval of Bibi Netanyahu, Israel, and the House of Rothschild. Do you think I have that wrong in any way, shape, or form, Susan?
I think in principle you're correct, but you're acting as, I mean, the way you framed it, it's as though he was allowed to do that because he kind of furthered their own practices. But I think that the truth is that he was the glue that kind of kept them all together. I think a lot of these shadowy interests, like the Rothschilds, work through frontmen. I think Epstein was kind of going around the world, talking to the world leaders, talking to the money launderers, arms traffickers, and so forth, and he was kind of sharing information, helping to pass money around. And I think this issue of child trafficking and child abuse was the glue that kind of kept them all together. It was certainly going on a long time before Epstein arrived at the scene. You pointed out Jimmy Savile. And we know that this cancer entered the federal government again during the Nixon administration when they launched the fiat currency. According to Jimmy Boots Rothstein, Watergate was really about collecting a book of very high-profile Republican child sex traffickers. So the compromise operation was being put in place at that time, and so you're looking really at Epstein being the glue that is connecting all these different players. And he was, in fact, from start to finish, from root to branch, an agent of the Rothschilds serving their interests. So, as you've said, once you begin to understand and go through the Epstein document dump, you'll see how all these different individuals at the highest levels connect. It's like all one big network.
One big network, and, in particular, I should mention the UK. So not just Israel and Epstein. I would be remiss not to point directly at the UK, MI6, MI5. Sir Edward Heath, a former prime minister, said to have been involved in the murder of as many as 16 children before his death. That only came out after his death. Jimmy Savile, the notorious pedophile and necrophiliac, known to be a child trafficker, best friends with King Charles. What do you think, before I let you go, what do you think is the significance, at least in terms of optics, of Prince Andrew finally being arrested? Now, I don't think he's going to do a day in prison personally. But what do you think is the significance of it, at least in terms of optics?
I think he is the fall guy. He was really a lesser prince. So from the perspective of the royal family, he's expendable.
Yeah.
And I think that Fergie also was always, from the point of the royal family, a bit of a disgrace. Her children, her daughters are not really, princesses in the normal sense, that they're not, they don't live off the royal wealth. So I think that he was expendable, and by having Prince Charles kind of sign off on his arrest, I think that the crown is attempting to reestablish some type of authority or a trust from the people. I don't know if it will work or not, but I think that's what they are intending to do. Those are the optics.
Yeah, those are the optics, and I do agree with you about Prince Andrew being expendable. One reason, though, that I think that we will never see true justice regarding the Epstein files is because of the way the UK and primarily the BBC and the British media have always served to run cover for the pedophile class, for the elite
Correct.
class. You remember probably how they targeted Ella Draper, the mother of Gabriel and Elisa. I interviewed Ella Draper regarding the Hampstead cover-up and the abuse of those children who said their father, Ricky Dearman, was involved in satanic ritual abuse and child sacrifice. Their father, Ricky Dearman, guided their hands with the blades to cut off the heads of babies and then dance in circles. And when asked by Ella and her mate at that point, who did this? Who did these things to you? The children provided the exact names, and then in drawings for police, drew the tattoos, demonic tattoos on private parts of some of these handlers at this school they went to. So, and it was all covered up by the BBC, and Ella Draper was drummed out of the country. She had to flee for her life, and then the children, Susan, were ultimately released back to their biological father, Ricky Dearman. So that's why I don't trust one iota of any investigation from the UK authorities.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. I mean, it's horrifying to me. I can't even imagine how a person can get to a state where they could ever abuse a child, much less torture one, eat one. I can't even wrap my head around it. It's horrific.
Yeah, and it's really happening. Let me see if I can call up a clip for you guys. Yeah, and for those to whom this is new, I mean, the Epstein drops certainly waking up a lot of people, but I've been reposting some of my micro documentaries from 5 years ago and 10 years ago regarding Pizzagate and this sort of research because it's evergreen and none of it was ever debunked. And people need to understand that history. 5, 10 years ago, when we all started covering this, when so many of us started covering this issue of satanic ritual abuse, child trafficking, child sacrifice, adrenochrome, etc. Here are the Hampstead 2, Gabriel and Elisa, in their own words, folks. This goes back more than 10 years.
Sex, eating baby, drinking baby's blood. We sacrifice the baby, we do sex to the babies, we throw when we're dancing them, the skulls after the babies are dead.
What skulls?
The baby skulls.
Before?
Yeah, from before. We put it on.
Where did the baby skulls come from?
They come from the baby.
How did you get them from the baby?
We cut the baby's head off, then we clear all the meat from the skulls. And then we put all the meat and cook it. Sometimes we roast it, sometimes we roast it in the oven, sometimes we cook it on a frying pan.
You told me there's some restaurants.
Yeah, and there's some restaurants.
All right, guys, I will pause it there. You know, is there anything else on your radar that we've missed today, Susan? We've just scratched the surface, but I really appreciate your perspective.
Well, thank you. I wanted to kind of follow up on something that you had said earlier on more of a positive note. You spoken about light therapy, and I wanted to make your audience aware that you can also use light therapy for your eyes. That there are now some clinical physicians, licensed therapists who can restore your eyesight with light frequencies and therapies. So that's also something to look into. But I think we covered a lot. I wanted to highlight how the Jeffrey Epstein international child trafficking ring was international, in nature. There's a lot more to go into. We can certainly do that on another occasion, but I think we've hit a lot of the key points.
Yeah, we've done okay today in red light therapy. I'm glad you brought that up. Light therapy, there's a lot of new emerging science, real helpful medical protocols, folks. So you don't just have to ask your doctor if Humira is right for you. In fact, I would invite you to stop doing that and do your own research on some of these alternative therapies, including if you ever get cancer, a cancer diagnosis. I would definitely recommend people look into Dr. William Marcus over on X, fenbendazole, ivermectin. There's protocols that are saving people's lives. I guess as we part ways, one last question for you. Doesn't have to be a yes or no. You can provide a maybe. Here's the question, Susan.
Okay.
Epstein, dead or alive? What do you think? I think they jailbroke him.
I think from the evidence we've seen, I think alive. It appears that the corpse that was presented as Epstein doesn't match, the original's facial features. And I have seen a photograph of what appears to be Epstein in Israel. And I think that he was probably too important for them to have killed. I know that he could definitely blow the whistle on a lot of these people, but I think he was very much one of their own. We know that the elites control the prison, they control the justice system. He was one of their own. So I would veer towards believing that he's still alive. How about you, Sean?
Yeah, no, I think they jailbroke him for sure. That's my opinion. He definitely didn't suicide himself. We know that 100%. And then Ghislaine Maxwell, the pictures of the Ghislaine that showed up via some sort of closed circuit camera in her last court appearance. That does not look like the same Ghislaine Maxwell, so now people think they jailbroke her too, Susan. Who knows?
That's true. Not the same woman. It looked like a person in a synthetic mask.
Yeah, the nose shape was completely different. I mean, who goes into prison and asks for a nose job so that they can have an uglier nose? Not sure. But evidently Ghislaine did. Who knows? Maybe she's in one of those prisons where they offer free trans surgeries and she's like, "Can I just get a bad nose job? Because, I don't know. I think a lot of this suggests that we're at a stage of empire collapse. And I hope I'm wrong, Susan, and now the people that control the empire are saying, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it, pleb? You don't have a DOJ. You don't have an FBI. What are you going to do about it? And I think that's what a lot of us are lamenting. What are we going to do about it?
I think we are going to have to find an answer to that question, and come together and put our best minds forward and figure it out.
Tough stuff. All right. Well, we appreciate you very much, journalist and author Susan Bradford. Let me show your Substack one more time here and give us a call to action.
I think the call to action would be to trust yourself more than your lying eyes. You do your homework, and I'm optimistic. Maybe it's misguided optimism, but I think that we can restore the constitutional republic if once we, the people and critical mass, can grow to understand the problem, to see where we went wrong, to establish the illegitimacy of the position that these elites have, because essentially they rely upon our consent from we, the people. So I think we may have to withdraw that consent and also understand that they have broken the social contract between us, the governed, and the government. And we will have to come together to restore the constitutional republic. But I believe that the solution does reside with us. I don't know if we've found it yet, but I think we need to begin the search and come together without so much infighting between different groups. I think the elites want us to be at odds with each other. So reach across the aisle, even with the Democrats, reach, young, old, male, female, come together as we, the people, because we are ultimately in the same boat. And I think united, we are powerful, and we can overcome this very criminal deep state. They are few. They are corrupt, and we must do this for our children and for future generations. The time is now.
Yeah, the time is now. And let me just say one last thing, guys. Candace has this right. Candace has said the exact same thing that you just heard Susan say, which is these people have broken the social contract. That's it. The same problem government caused, government evidently cannot solve regardless of who's sitting in the White House. Now, I'm going to hold out hope that I'm wrong on that, and I'll be the first person to tell you if I find out I'm wrong. But I think everything we've covered today is factual, and it needs to be discussed no matter how painful it is. One last thing, too, guys. You know how we're all the same and we're all in this boat together? We're all in this mess together. We all have the same dollars in our pockets, and they're debasing that stuff as quickly as they can. God help us if hyperinflation hits. To that end, a link to SD Bullion. I'll try to remember to link it below, guys. Get yourself some physical gold, physical silver while you still can, because this dollar, I don't think, is long for this world. We'll see. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong about all of it, Susan. I hope there's a panacea for this country coming just around the corner. That's what I pray.
Pray for a miracle.
Pray for a miracle. All right. Susan Bradford has been our guest. The links are below. Thank you, Susan. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. My pleasure.
All right. God bless. Friends, thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate you very much. Now, look, I know the news isn't always good. In fact, sometimes the news is very bad. But would you rather know your house is on fire, or would you rather wake up in the middle of the night engulfed in flames? Friends, thanks so much for tuning in. I'll remind you every single day for free. Check us out to get the real news, the antidote to corporate propaganda at sgtreport.com. And until next time, may God bless you and yours. Bye-bye.
I feel like at this point, if you're not saying anything, you're complicit. Like you're okay with what happened to these women, these children, these young boys, these men. And it was done by the highest powers in government. It was done by the most powerful people that are supposed to protect.
It's a show. They're opposites only in name. They shake hands together, they go to lunch together, they go to dinner, they rape children together. They are actors. I keep saying this. None of them have a freaking oath of office. They're serving themselves, not us, with rare exception.
And the Bible gives us the action plan. Turn back to God.